Okay, let's. I'm watching to see if it makes it over to the live stream. I'm hoping. Yep, we're going. So thank you all. We'll give it a second for people to potentially rejoin. Actually, is there anybody?
I blew up the internet.
I think you did. You clogged up those tubes.
That's it.
A couple people that reached out to me so they may tell people that they can get back. Look at next door because that sometimes families, if somebody posted and say it's back up. Sorry, not Scarsdale family. I don't think we want to post on Scarsdale family. See anything on? I've just looked. I mean, if
is still playing on the YouTube feed. Doing it now.
you're
I'm gonna just try and reopen the whole thing.
yeah, I'm starting to see the numbers start to pick up.
Okay.
All right, though. Technology, can't live with it, can't live without it.
I just got a text from someone saying it died again.
I'm watching it. I've got it up on another screen, just muted, and it does seem to be.
Alec, does this record regardless? If this records regardless, my suggestion
Yeah, we
is
can post it up again, right? Correct. Right. Okay. No, that's. I've got it up on another screen, just muted, and it does seem to be.
Alec, does this record regardless?
Yes.
If it records
Someone is
regardless.
yes, it does. And somebody's got up two windows right now because we're getting the delay.
My point is just that community members can't comment, so maybe we can just continue and post it later and people can see it later. I don't know.
Let me just put, let me, I'll do one thing. I will just here, I'm going to put a comment up on the YouTube and then, let people know.
Alec, I just got a comment from someone that it sounds on the YouTube.
I mean, so we'll leave it going, but to Marquita's point, I'm just going to put some from the Culbridge side that we can, I can post over there when we're. Okay, so let's a little hard to see. Bear with me just a minute more. Go in. So I've posted on the chat, and our place right now, I forgot we were talking, the last thing I'd remember.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions, Mariquita?
Great.
Clear.
Fantastic. I wanted to and classes like APs, although it's true across all the grades, coming from the classroom interaction and the discussions among students and with the teachers. And if we have half the class in the classroom and half the class remote, and how do we, what can we do to maintain that? And more importantly, in the AP areas, make sure that everyone's learning the same stuff and getting the same insights, again, when half the class is maybe to work on a project in the middle, or can we have full class discussions?
We can. The point is just that, so there may be a situation on Monday as a teacher, I may want to have a really in-depth discussion about whatever novel we're reading. And I may then invite the students in my class to, who are at home at that time, to connect for a meet with my students, the rest of the class here in school. The next day, we may just connect at the beginning of the period for 5 minutes and then have both the kids in school and at home doing some kind of an activity, and then maybe come back together for the last 10 minutes of the class. So the capability is there, but I also don't want to, I want to recognize the fact that just relying on synchronous full period instruction alone is, I think, counterproductive. It's limiting. So that's the vision, but it certainly encompasses full class discussions. At the same time, it can be very nice to have a discussion with just 12 kids at a time. It provides a little more airtime for the kids. It provides a little bit greater sense of intimacy. Kids who, so it's about providing lots of different options and recognizing that teachers are really good at picking what's the right tool for the job for getting to this teaching point, this learning objective, and recognizing look different from just oftentimes me standing at the front of the room talking at you as the.
Can I add into you know what, I'll add in my video. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to add into, of course, my dog starts barking now. This is why we have to us starting Google Classroom. That was what I was going to say to you, Marakita, is a form of consistent to us that at the beginning we set hoping that we are back as a watcher setting to see my have that.
This was a learning curve that was sort of forced on everybody when it happened. And so teachers, teachers teach what they know how to teach and in manners often that they, have been used to. And then they add to that repertoire of things that they do. And there's a learning curve as that in this time, it was a whole new way of having to approach something. One. And I think that they've worked very hard now. They've made their own notes about, and I really think that it's going to be different. A learning curve is still a learning curve, and we're and of course, depending upon where we end, it's going to be a tricky situation. So we
Great. Well,
Hands. Do you see those raised hands, Alec? We can't hear you.
I'm going to ask my question. I'm just going to jump in. It's fine. I'm just summer whether it is accessible to the teachers' aides and the teaching assistants, or whether some of that will be made available during the first week of professional development.
I think the teachers' aides, the teaching assistants have participated in some of the professional learning over the summer, some of the work with Shelley Klein, and mainly.
I'd like you off.
And I think that, as you said, with the extended superintendent's conference day period at the beginning of the school year, I think that we'll utilize a lot of that time to help the aides to work in that environment and not deliver the instruction. They can't deliver the instruction, but support kids and support the delivery of instruction.
Thank you.
Yep.
Alec, I think you phased out or faded out there. Audio.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Pamela.
Josh, have you done your reading? Have you done your reading? Okay. So, no, we're not pausing.
Pamela.
Yeah. Hi.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, right. So you will not have access.
I muted whoever that was. Anyway,
Yeah,
Emma,
okay.
go ahead.
All right, Zach, do your reading. Okay. So I have a couple of questions about about the remote portion. I heard, Mike, what you were saying about, it may look like, for example, the teacher talks to everyone, both the kids in class and as well as kids who are at home through Google Meets or webcam or whatever it is. And then, everyone sort of goes off to do their own thing for a bit. And then they come back at the end of class to talk about it or whatever, which all sounds good. But as we've sort of witnessed this evening, the tech, while great when it works, doesn't always work. And I guess I'm wondering what the plan is when we have tech difficulties, because it looks like, that may happen more often than we would hope. And how are teachers expected to be able to cope with that while, of course, they're teaching class to a half the class live?
I think that typically this would be a great Paul Garofano question, but he cannot get service at his house, so he is not available. But one thing I did want to say is that we are taking feedback constantly, and then I'll let Mike jump in. For example, we saw with the elementary parent forums was not working, so look to use Zoom at our next one, learning curve as well. I think we'll learn, unfortunately, strategies. Again, this is
I'm going to post it up there. I'm not going to waste any more time trying to deal with that. So what I'm saying is that in this particular case, we've learned that sometimes that connection can be broken, which then causes an issue with the live stream. We found with the Google Meet, where you were having issues was not using Google Meet for the purposes that the school brought it on for classroom instruction, where you had problems with it when you're suddenly trying to have 500 parents in a forum doing there. So it's not the proper technology for that situation. That's why we pivoted and said, okay, Zoom, while it has some potential issues, those issues we're not so worried about in a parent forum versus issues that we might be worried about in a classroom setting. For the same reasons we may need to decide as a board, maybe we do switch to Zoom, because then you don't have those kind of cross-platform connectivity problems. But so I'll let Mike answer the question, because no matter what it is, yes, you can have technical issues, but I don't think we have seen to date that I'm aware of, say within a Google Meet within the school, again, other than trying to pump too many people into it, which is not going to be the issue in a classroom setting. I'm not aware of many issues unless, right, if we had network issues, but that's network issues. So I'm sorry to ramble a little there, Mike, but you're muted. That's a training issue.
I would just add that technology is all that we've got.
Right.
In that we want to maximize students' connection time with teachers, whether it be physical or virtual, right? And we have, I think, some schedules that limit it with the constraint of maintaining health and safety. We try to maximize in-person time, and then we want to complement that with virtual time, so they have as much opportunity as possible to interact with your teacher in a safe and productive manner. Technology is always going to fail. That's like, you can count on it. And teachers are great improvisers. I think we talked about the fact that our tech support team really has done very well, and people have generally been pleased with that. So if an individual is having problems with technology, they have resources they can go to. But for teachers, my favorite example, I'm going to tell a story. Maria DeCandia was a science teacher here at EHS. She retired a few years ago. And I was actually observing her once, and she was teaching a lesson on wastewater runoff. and she was talking about this high-tech material they developed to make driveways out of, where the water goes through instead of goes off. And she brought a little sample, and she was going to demonstrate it. And to demonstrate it, she just put it under the faucet in her classroom and turned the faucet on, and no water came out. This was her classroom that she always teaches in, and there would have been no reason to expect differently. But like 5 minutes later, Mr. Ganeshanathan came on the announcement and said, there's a problem with the water in D building. We've shut the water off. So, I mean, you know, stuff like that happens in teaching and learning all of the time. And our teachers are going to do the absolute best they can to do, and it's incredible what kind of ways they found around whatever limitations and problems they run into. So, you know, like I said, it's all we've got in this situation. And so we're going to do the best to be prepared for it. And if it happens, to teach through it and to provide whatever support we can.
Could I just add something? And it was Pamela, just the way you described something. And I want to be really clear that part of the training of hybrid learning is that when students are working asynchronously or in their small groups, in their home groups, they're on very specific learning activities or very specific practice activities where they're actually trying to apply something in a new way. So I just want to make sure that we're really clear that we're talking about very purposeful instruction, not just to go off and do something, or maybe not just to go off and do something disconnected, because we also got feedback from parents and we understood that some of the work was considered busy work, or maybe just giving the kids work to fill time. And that's very much against the kind of training we've been doing. And it's very specific and very tied to the instruction. So even if the technology didn't work for the child to come back, they were working on some very specific work or learning activity or practice activity. The clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Pamela, you weren't. Go ahead.
I did have a question on a different topic, which is assessments. I know that there has been some concern by everyone, including teachers as well as everyone else, about how teachers at virtually every level are going to be able to effectively assess the students' progress. And I'm just wondering whether how that's going, and is there, have we found resources that will enable the teachers to be able to assess the kids appropriately, or have we found sort of alternative methods of assessments? And I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about how y'all think that's going to work.
I think that formative assessment, where you're doing dipstick assessments during instruction, is very effective in this format, where it's more informal and it's more just what did the kids learn today instead of what did the kids learn over the last month. I do think that for longer periods that assessments like projects, problem-based learning are going to be more successful than traditional paper and pencil tests. If we find ourselves in a hybrid situation, it is easier to assess using those traditional formats because you'll have at least some of the kids in class in front of you. So if you want to give a paper and pencil test, you can do that. I highly recommend that you create 2 different versions of that test for the 2 different cohorts of students. But I think that the real challenge is when we're fully remote, and I think the IDE work has helped us to understand some different approaches to assessing kids without relying on paper and pencil tests.
Over your questions, Pamela? Okay, Jennifer.
Good. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Mike, you actually gave a great segue to my question when you used the magic phrase "fully remote." There's a there's a decent chance that at some point this fall we'll end up going fully remote. I know there's also a chance that we might possibly be allowed to have parents choose that. What is that going to look like?
So it's easy to confuse the hybrid schedule with hybrid learning. Hybrid learning is really what I've been talking about tonight, is designed to be used in any of the three scenarios. So the same activities that I've described, okay, we're going to bring everyone together for 10 minutes at the beginning of the class for a mini lesson. Then everyone's going to work independently on completing a task, or maybe in small groups. And during that time as the teacher, I'm going to pop around from breakout room to breakout room and kind of interact with the small groups. And at the end, we're all going to come back together. That works when you have half the class at home and half in school. And it works when you have everyone at home. And it works when you have everyone in school. So that's kind of the goal, is to provide learning experiences that can easily be adapted to fully remote or partially remote or in-person learning.
Thanks.
Okay, Flash.
Yeah, hi. So thanks, Mike. So Jennifer just asked the question that I was planning to ask, but so I'll just remark there. You know, in my opinion, safety is going to be a paramount issue among, you know, we can discuss many things, but that will predominate most of the other agendas that will come by. And in that context, the e-learning model is going to be the crux of how satisfied the community, the teachers, the student, everybody is. And so even as we go along, and we'll start with the hybrid model, I hope that we keep building and refining the e-learning piece, because that is by far the toughest and, you know, and the most crucial of having a fantastic school year. So all the best for the work that you've done. And, you know, just a remark that this is the piece that we should remain very hypersensitive as we go along. Even though things might look smooth for a month or two, I think we have a long year ahead of us. So I just hope that we kind of keep building on this e-learning piece. It's very sensitive, and it's the most crucial part of the whole, you know, scheduling this year. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, did you still have questions, or is your hand just still up from before?
Sorry, that's from before.
That's fine. Anyone else have any questions on this segment of the presentation? All right, then thank you very much, Mike. Very much appreciated.
Actually, can I just add one more question? I'm sorry, not a question. I just wanted to make a comment, which is that I think one of the things that might be helpful, and I'm going back to expectations, because typically everybody's disappointment is about a gap in expectations usually. So I'm just going to go back there very quickly, which is that it would be helpful, I think, if as teachers embark on the year, one of the things they do is explain to the parents what distance learning is going to mean in their classroom. And it might not be consistent the whole time, and it might not be exactly the same every day, and it might not be, but to give the parents an idea, and it's a little harder at the high school, but it's almost actually more important at the high school, because the kids are all of a sudden not on a class, they're on a class, and like as a parent, if you're home, watching that kind of just leaves you with lots of questions. So I think to the extent that teachers can really be explicit about, and it's not like, here's what I'm going to do on Tuesday, here's what I'm going to do on Thursday, but literally I'm going to use these 3 different types of models in my classroom to help people, to help the students work both in the classroom and at home. So that I think might go a long way into kind of helping the parents understand what they should be seeing and when things are a little out of whack.
I agree. Like, I mean, we can create models and frameworks and present them until we're blue in the face. But for parents to really understand those models, they need to know, well, how does it play out in my first grader's classroom? How does it play out in my 7th grader's ELA class? What does it look like in AP Stats? And so that's why we're really encouraging teachers to be proactive, parents, and keeping them in the loop and not waiting for them to loop themselves in. So thank
else on that? Okay, great. So Victoria, what have we got next?
On health and safety, and I'm going to share. Am I sharing talking points for Board of Education August 6, 2020?
Not yet.
So I'm sharing the wrong screen. That means.
No, I haven't shared anything yet. But
Oh, okay.
like,
I
what do you want?
thought I choose. Let me just make sure I choose the right.
If you have it in a
I have it.
Google
Yeah, I do have it.
Chrome
Thank
tab.
I got it.
Yep.
I think I got it. No, that's not working, Brian.
You want to share your screen?
Oh.
We're seeing it now. Oh, we lost it.
Yeah. I have helpers. So I picked Chrome tab there. And then that. There.
Yep, we're good.
Good. Thank you. Helpers are good. Thanks. So thanks to Mike for kicking us off with teaching and learning. Health and safety and facilities are two additional very important topics, as mentioned numerous times, particularly health and safety. So I want to talk a little bit about the categories that are included in our plan, our reopening plan, beginning with preventive actions. And the purpose is to prevent sick students and sick adults from coming into school. And we're going to have an app called Easy Screen that's going to be required to be used every morning for all of the students and all of the faculty and staff, and that will be temperature taking at home. The staff will have a series of questions to answer daily. The students won't have to answer the questions daily, or I should say the parents on behalf of the students won't have to answer the questions daily, but they will answer them weekly on behalf of the students. However, the temperature checks will be required every day. We're also going to do training for all staff on looking for and identifying symptoms, because what we do know is that students or even a colleague might start to become sick during the day. So that will be very much a part of our prevention, not just temperature taking, answering the screener, but also looking well and performing checks on that as on a regular basis. In terms of healthy hygiene practices, alcohol-based hand sanitizer will be available in all of the schools. Also, hand washing, signage for hand washing, signage for keeping hands clean will be installed throughout the buildings. We will have regular checklists for the hand washing, different grade levels. For example, at the high school, we know that washing hands or using hand sanitizer before going into classrooms will be something that we will make sure that we are having available. Certainly, in terms of other activities through the day, again, kindergarten teachers will do that differently than high school teachers, but we will all be focusing on healthy hygiene practices. Social distancing, we're striving for the maximum social distancing and masking as well. So a lot of the guidance from the CDC and also the Department of Health says that anytime that individuals cannot maintain appropriate social distancing, they must wear face coverings. We are going to require face coverings for everyone, even if it is 6 feet. And looking at how it's playing out in the classrooms, most of our desks are anywhere from 5 to 6 feet, and we have been meeting or exceeding the state guidance requiring square footage per person. I already talked about the face coverings, acceptable face coverings, covering both the mouth and the nose will be required. I know that some community groups, some school groups are looking at selling some Edgemont masks. We also have purchased disposable masks for any students or faculty and staff who do not have one that day. Regarding the additional PPE, we are purchasing fitted N95 masks for all of the nurses, as well as other personal protective equipment for the possibility of working with someone who is ill. In terms of managing sick persons in school, the staff will be trained, as I said, on how to identify signs of illness. Whoever notices someone who is ill or someone who is going to be going to the medical office, they will first give a call to the medical office, well, probably first to the principal, who will notify the nurse, because it will be important for no one else to be in the office at that time, and for the nurse to don the PPE, as well as the person will be in an isolation area of the health office, will be assessed by a nurse at the school, and then transportation made to transport the sick person home or to a healthcare facility. It's going to be extremely important this year for parents to partner with us in this area regarding emergency contact information, and also in terms of the ability to respond quickly if we make a call, if a child is sick. Regarding, and in our plan, of course, that's not all that's in there. There's a number of references to the CDC and the Department of Health regarding cleaning, because any area used by a sick person will be closed off and will not be reused before cleaning and disinfecting. And of course, then all of the guidelines about how long the person has to stay home, symptoms, and that will be clearly documented and also communicated by the nurses to the person who is ill. John McCabe and I are going to tag team from here in terms of cleaning and disinfection. And John, do you want to take over and talk about the electrostatic sprayers that actually now are here? No, I saw him on the call. But John, I know, also has no power and no internet.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if I see him. If he is on, he is dialed in, and I don't know what his number is, so I don't. Does anybody know the last four digits of his number? And I could.
I will talk through it, beginning with the electrostatic sprayers, which will make disinfecting much faster. They will spray on, and then the disinfectant is allowed to sit for a while, and then will be wiped down. We're also, I know John has talked about. Yes.
I do see John on there. I just unmuted him. John, can you hear us? Are you able to?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I just unmuted you. There we go. Good.
Oh, you got me. You had to unmute me. I thought I was unmuted. Okay.
Great. If you could talk about cleaning and disinfection. I just said that the electrostatic sprayers had shown up, which is great news.
I was able to hear you loud and clear, and they started arriving. They started arriving today, and actually, this is the most effective method of applying disinfecting. It's an industry standard right now, so we welcome them coming in, and we look forward to using them. We really have like a three-pronged approach with disinfecting, but it all starts with our summer cleaning, which is what is the official deep cleaning of the year. It's the time that we can really scrub and wash well all the surfaces, all the floors, get into every space and just give it a thorough cleaning. And that's what really prepares us for the first prong of our approach, which is the Bioshield. The Bioshield is an EPA registered safe for food contact surfaces. I was kind of, when we were doing more research on our disinfecting routine, it was important also to be environmentally and health conscious, because when you start to take a step back and see the amount of chemicals that are being used to fight this virus, it's a little bit daunting to think of what we might be doing as collateral damage here. So the Bioshield is, like I said, safe for food contact surfaces. It kills viruses and bacteria physically, not chemically. It forms a covalent bond with a surface, which makes a protective layer with positively charged ions. The pathogen cells are attracted to the positively charged ions, and efficacy occurs through a process called lysis, with the cell walls being ruptured. So the pathogens that fall on this surface, it's like a microscopic spiking material, and it destroys the cells as it comes into contact with them. So like I said, it's a physical disruption and not a chemical reaction. This gets applied, I'm thinking, like every 60 days. They say it can last 90 days, but with the amount of cleaning we'll be doing every day, it's not going to be as viable after 3 months. The second prong of our disinfecting is the use of hypochlorous acid. This is a green seal disinfectant. This is something that we'll be producing on site. I have one generating station now. I have a second one on order. So we'll be producing this product at 2 of our schools, transporting it to the 3rd school. And this is also applied by the electrostatic sprayers. The idea with the hypochlorous acid will be to utilize it during the school day. We'll have people, visiting bathroom facilities and cleaning the classrooms in between periods. If we have the AM PM schedule by chance. So this is something that can just be sprayed on and left work to sit on the surface and work towards killing any surface bacteria or virus. And it'll be a nice combination with the Bioshield. Then at the end of the day, we'll be doing what we did up into the time we were dismissed in March. We'll be using our 2 disinfecting chemicals that we normally use throughout the school year. One is from the Spartan Company, one is from US Chemical. And this is where we'll be going in and spraying on surfaces and wiping them down, because the action of cleaning the surface actually makes the Bioshield more effective. So at the same time, we will be cleaning the surfaces and disinfecting them, and it's kind of like a coordinated effort between these 3 chemicals, which are green, and they're EPA sanctioned for safety, and I think it's a smart way for us to approach this battle with the COVID-19 virus. And that's how our disinfecting and cleaning will go throughout the year.
Thank you, John. Thank you. So just a few top questions related to health and safety that we've received previously. In terms of the health screening procedures and protocols, I mentioned about the app. It's actually an online and a mobile app enabled screening platform that will be in place for all students and all staff. We are also looking at the visitor protocol right now for the summer with everyone who's working. There are no visitors without appointments. In terms of the school year, that will be the same thing. It will be visitors, of course, with appointments coming into the building, and we will look to possibly use the Google form for visitors, but it'll be a protocol for visitors as well to come into the building, but not necessarily the extensiveness of the app. Also, in terms of if someone tests positive, I mentioned what would happen if that happened when they were in school. But in terms of self-reporting, we immediately will work with the state and local health departments and cooperate with contact tracing efforts. We know that we are going to have to provide name, address, phone number for anyone who has been in contact with someone who tests positive. Again, we would look at what area of the school they had been in, close that area, and disinfect it. And then follow the guidelines, the CDC guidelines about the criteria to discontinue home isolation. What will the mask wearing and social distancing requirements be? Talked about that as 6 feet. All will be wearing masks when indoors. We are looking, especially at the elementary level and high school level, at what do mask breaks look like, getting time outside. We're maximizing our outside space. Teachers will be working in departments and working together to kind of pick their outside space in terms of what their go-to area is to bringing the students outside. At EHS, we have a great opportunity now. There's so many times that having an outdoor campus is a detriment. I think now it's great to have that time outside and also to have the overhangs in place. And we've talked about having chairs be outside all the time that could be moved in different locations. John talked about the cleaning and disinfecting process in terms of the 3-prong approach. And now we're going to move into the facilities. And John, if you want to speak to the facilities components in the plan?
Sure. COVID-19, of course, will be a big focus for us as far as maintaining the facilities, but it's not going to relieve us of our responsibilities as far as health and safety in normal operation during a school day. So along with all the safety drills that we conduct during the school year, like evacuations and lockdown drills, we still have to conduct those. We still have to observe our HERA standards, our building condition survey, lead testing for water, and all the other mandates and regulations and code structure that we have to follow. As far as controlling infection, it's been mentioned quite a bit here tonight about reduced use of space, like having smaller classroom sizes to achieve social distancing. Fresh air is a proven big component to a healthy environment. So as much as we can with windows and doors open and utilizing fans to bring in fresh air, that'll be something we'll engage in. Alcohol-based hand sanitizer that Victoria had mentioned will be very prevalent in the buildings, particularly at entrances and eating areas if we do have eating areas. Required square footage per student is obviously bigger now. We're in the 6 to 7 feet distancing between students, which is like 36 square feet to 49 square feet per student. It's a pretty generous amount of space for the students to have, as well as keeping that barrier between the students and the faculty. Victoria had alluded to space expansion, kind of incorporating outdoor space with our indoor instruction and learning time. We have outdoor classrooms at the elementary schools. We have the breezeways at the high school. We have a lot of outdoor property that we can utilize when the weather is decent. So we're thinking about ways to incorporate that for people to use, facilitate the use of it with maybe putting seating outside and just being inviting with the whole idea of being outside. The drinking water is going to be a little challenging. We have to close all the water fountains, the traditional water fountains with bubblers. Those are the units on the water fountains that you put your mouth up to drink the water. Those will all be disabled. We do have bottle filling stations. They're combination units with a number of our water fountains. Those will remain active. We will also have to introduce a new way to have the ability for people to get fresh water in the building, whether it be bottled or water coolers, but one way or another, we'll have to supplement what will be left over when we shut down all the water fountains. The ventilation will be pretty important as far as bringing fresh air in. That is real key to this whole thing with keeping as much fresh air in the buildings as possible. So we have centralized units that will be increasing the filter efficiency on. At the same time, we'll be spilling a lot of the return air outside and bringing in fresh air, which is a damper action that, like I said, the return air would be sent outside and the more fresh air will come in. So the relationship of the two damper percentages would be increased or decreased to accomplish that effect. The MERV 11 filters that we're going to go with are a start. We're going to see how the fans react to that. There's a lot of talk about MERV ratings on filters with little understanding on how fans work. We have our motors are not variable speed motors, so they're not very conducive to really restrictive filter sizes. And what I've seen happen with fan units before, when the filters are typically dirty and they're restricted, the plenums collapse on them. So we have to be careful not to do any damage to our systems. We have bathroom exhaust that will move the air out of the space. There's no real fresh air going into bathrooms, just the expelling of the air. So we have maybe the ability to open up a door to help keep the air moving through there. But other than that, it's really just an exhausting system that's in the bathroom facilities. And as far as that's pretty much it now for facilities, we keep growing on this, and it's an evolving project, but we'll be fine for when school opens.
And that's it, Alec. I'll open it up to questions from the Board of Ed.
You're muted, Alec. Alec, you're muted.
All right. Pamela, you should be unmuted now. Pamela?
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry if you mentioned this because I somehow got booted out and had to log back in, so apologies. What are we doing with regard to the custodians who are going to be doing all the cleaning and so on? Are we providing them with PPE and, like sort of at what level, like the N95s or whatever? I'm just concerned because we're expecting a lot from them.
Well, the custodians all have PPE. They have latex gloves. They have masks. They have shields if they want to wear shields, goggles. We also have like aprons that they can wear. The chemicals that we're applying are not hazardous in any sense or form. They're EPA certified green or safe with food contact surfaces. So the most harsh chemical that we use at the end of the day, they've been using for years. So they're very used to these chemicals. The Bioshield and the hypochlorous acid will be new for them. We're actually testing it out at the Greenville School right now, the hypochlorous acid chemical, and they've been using it for a few weeks now. So they do have PPE,
sorry, just to be clear, I'm actually less concerned about their being able to use the chemicals, which I assume they'll be instructed properly. I'm more concerned about, if they're going into classrooms and there's concern about, or wherever they're going, there's concern about aerosols and that sort of thing, that they have appropriate masking and so on, whatever it is that they need in order to do their job.
Do you mean
providing them with that? Are we providing them with PPE?
Yes.
We are, yeah.
Are you referring to, Pamela, if they have to go into a space and clean a space where someone was sick?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, we are providing them with all of the PPE to do that.
PPE and a wait time.
Right.
Yes.
To be clear,
24 hours.
Okay. I mean, just one, to be clear, one, I'm concerned for them. But, two, we are counting on them to do their job. And if they become sick and, as we all know, it may take a while for it to be clear that someone's sick and so on. And if they're going around cleaning things, but they have the virus, that's actually really unhelpful. So I just want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to protect them as well as to protect everyone else.
Right. There will be. Yeah, I'm sorry, John.
They all have access to personal protective equipment, and they will be using it.
And also, Pamela, there's a 24-hour wait time as well for them before they even go in and clean it. So someone mentioned about aerosol or worried about the air. Yes.
We're not using aerosols.
No, I mean, I meant if someone had been sick in the classroom.
Thank you.
Monica, I believe, was next.
Yes. So regarding health and safety, and you were just talking about if a student is sick, and we're going to follow obviously all the CDC guidelines, but if a student is found to be sick at school, or even the next day, the parents call and say he's sick. What is there going to be? What as of today is the protocol to any students and teachers that were exposed to that particular student?
So as soon as we know that someone is diagnosed positive, we work with the Department of Health and they will immediately start the contact tracing. We will close that classroom and wait the 24 hours. That will be disinfected. But we would do the same contact tracing for the Department of Health. So same as if we hear that a student has someone sick at home. So as soon as there's a contact, we're going to work with the Department of Health and provide the information that they ask us to do the contact tracing.
And then those students that were exposed would also be at home?
Quarantined, correct.
Okay.
I just want to clarify one thing there, because I've also, with 2 students heading off to college right now, have listened to countless webinars on what they're doing and what that means. And so it does not necessarily mean that just because there were 12 other students in the room with that student, that counts as a contact, right? The whole purpose of everyone masking is so that when you're keeping that distance and you have the mask, so that they can have it and not necessarily infect you. So we just have to be careful that people don't just think that automatically means, well, all 12 of those kids are now quarantined for 2 weeks. Again, the Department of Health will have to determine, what the level of contact was and whether, they were, whether at mask time, or their mask break time, they were in close contact with each other without their masks and things like that. But those are determinations that, right, the Department of Health has to make. But I just know from some of these other discussions that just because other kids were in the classroom with a child who tests positive does not automatically mean all those other kids are going to be quarantined.
Correct. Thank you, Alec.
Monica, did you have more? Okay. Nilesh.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Victoria, John. So this whole presentation looks like going for a war zone. So I just want to know what's the cost of going for this war zone and where is it coming from, if it is coming at the cost of something else.
So we did apply for the CARES money, and Brian, I want to talk a little bit about that, the amounts.
Sure. So every school district who receives some Title I funding is entitled to apply for this CARES. It's a combined CARES relief that comes from 2 different things. One is a governor-sponsored program. Another one is an elementary and secondary school sponsored program. Based on our Title I funding and the calculation, we're able to apply for roughly $66,000 of additional aid. That was submitted yesterday or earlier this week. And they're accepting it on a rolling basis. So we know that there are many expenses, and to your point, unless a lot of them we don't even know how much it's going to become, but we know that does help us. We have to earmark it for certain things. So one of the things we did earmark that for is the purchasing of those sprayers that John spoke about, which are pretty costly but necessary for us, and so that helps us get there, but it doesn't certainly take care of everything yet.
Thank you.
Manakita. No? Okay. Jennifer.
Thanks. I know the state guidelines say that we have to close if the infection rate is over a certain percentage. Do we have, or are we working on our own sort of internal trigger point where we move to all remote if there's a certain level of cases in the school?
Yes, the nurses, the school nurses will keep a database of all of the cases, and we'll work with the Department of Health as to what that tipping point is. It depends, I think, on the cases, on the number, and I guess on the frequency, possibly. But the Department of Health will help us determine that. But as Alex said, it won't be one case and we're closing school. It will be one case, we're isolating the person who is sick, we're disinfecting, and people who are considered close contacts through the contact tracing will be quarantined. And then if we start to see a number of cases, I'm sure we will be moving to remote learning, or at least partial. We'll have options to move to full remote. We'll have options to bring less students into school if we want to minimize the classroom use. But there are a couple of options in working with the Department of Health on that.
Sure, thank you. Related to that, and again, this is assuming that the state says it's okay to count full remote students as going to school while the rest of the school is open. But assuming we got a small cluster of cases that the Department of Health felt we were managing, but that spooked some parents who were kind of on the fence. Will parents have the opportunity to switch to full remote in that kind of situation?
So that's an interesting question. The fact that we don't have guidance around the fact that parents can even choose full remote yet. That there's some details that we don't yet know about that. I imagine that if there are a number of cases and the fact that we have full remote as a opportunity, I imagine we would be going to full remote. Of course, anytime a parent can keep their child home from school or to make the best decision for their family. But I imagine, Jennifer, that in terms of how you pick full remote, can you come and go from full remote, that will all need to be determined.
Sure, yeah, it's complicated by the fact that it's not officially allowed in the first place, but
not yet. I'm expecting it will be, but not yet.
Right. Thank you.
I saw Pamela's question. Pamela, it depends on the determination of close contact. It's not just because you were in a classroom with a student, would you have to quarantine? It would be determined by the amount of, because again, assuming everyone is masking, everyone is social distancing, it would really depend on the closeness and the contact tracing investigation in terms of who's considered a close contact and who would have to quarantine.
Marquita.
Sorry, yeah, I do have a question this time.
Yep.
This is kind of combining the two presentations a little bit. So would love to know, and again, this is not, I'm sure, been top of mind, so just kind of put it in the mix a little bit, which is what happens when we have a teacher who's ill and now we need substitutes? I mean, it's always been a little bit challenging to get enough substitutes as it is. We now have this remote model. Is there an opportunity to combine some classes or have kids access another teacher in the grade or another class? So just wanted to know kind of what the teachers out kind of model is going to be this year.
So I think there are a couple of options, and it really depends on how sick the teacher is. If the teacher has to quarantine but is not ill, I think a teacher could teach remote, and that could look like whatever. It depends on the number of students. If that teacher already has some students on full remote, if that teacher has some students in the classroom, I can imagine the teacher teaching remotely, and maybe there's a teacher aide in the room with the students just to make sure everything's going okay in terms of the remote. But with remote instruction, it does give us many more interesting opportunities to make sure that the students are getting the best instruction as possible, and not just assuming that if a teacher has to quarantine, that they're not able to teach. We would work with the individual teachers on that. But we also will be using substitutes as we need to if people are too sick to teach.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, so is that the end of that portion?
Yes, that is. Thank you very much.
And thank John. So is that the end of the presentation portion of the meeting, I think? I'll have your slide up there. But, okay. Then I believe we're on to the business items.
Yes, please.
For no good reason other than there are only two of them. Why don't we take them individually?
Sure. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approve the following budget transfer of $1,000 from the health insurance program to the special aid fund. And it was an additional cost during the summer.
I have Monica as a motion, Marquita as a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. I believe we've already talked about the about school calendar changes. So do I have a? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What do you want to ask?
Yes, resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the revision to the school calendar for the 2020-2021 school year, which would move the 4 superintendent conference days. The 3 additional superintendent conference days to September 9th, 10th, and 11th. It does not change the number of days in the school year. It just provides that opportunity for training for health, safety, and remote learning and hybrid learning in the beginning of the school year.
Just one clarification on that, Victoria, it doesn't change the last day of school, correct?
Does not change the last day of school.
Judy, do you have a question also?
I just want to make sure that we clarify that the actual first day for students
Would be Monday, September 14th.
Thank you.
With that, do I have a motion to approve? Let's see, Judy, second Jennifer, all in favor? We are approved. That comes to the end of our agenda. Our next scheduled meeting is on the 18th of August. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more contact between the district and the community between now and then, but that will be our next scheduled board meeting. It does say if needed.
We'll change that. We'll remove that.
Yeah, say I can't imagine in this situation we wouldn't have it. So
those were the pre-COVID days.
right, exactly. So thank everyone. Thank you for attending. For those who are still on the YouTube channel, our apologies. Please pass on. We'll probably send out an email as well, just to let people know that we will have the full recording, and we'll make sure that gets posted up on our YouTube channel, so that anyone that missed any of it or dropped off and didn't try and come back on will still have the opportunity to watch if they like. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Anilesh, second by Marquita. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.